What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, we're going to be talking about Marauders, number 27 by Jerry Duggan, Matteo Lolli, and Phil Noto. And in this video, we are going to be breaking down all of the new changes that are going to be coming to the Hellfire Trading Company, including who is going to be running it, who's coming back, who's leaving, and why Sebastian Shaw is about to become its most dangerous ex-member. We're also going to be talking about the clarification that we just recently got regarding Dolores Ramirez of X-Desk and why her perspective on mutants is unique among X-villains. And last but most certainly not least, why Kate Pryde is about to betray a member of the Quiet Council. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, if you want to see more awesome videos like this one, hit that subscribe button. I post multiple videos throughout the week, plus live stream the Blerd Cave every Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So hit that bell button. That way you don't miss anything. Also, if you enjoy the video, Hulk smash that like button. That said, let's talk about Marauders, number 27.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
Now, let's go ahead and get one thing out of the way first in regards to Marauders number 27 is that this is the final issue of Marauders written by Jerry Duggan. As we know, Steve Orlando will be taking over the book coming up with Marauders number 28 in March. So don't worry, Marauders is not going anywhere. It's just changing writers because Jerry Duggan's a busy guy with X-Men lately. Not to mention, I'm pretty sure they wanted to freshen up the book with a new perspective. In this story, we are getting the conclusion of a lot of other plot threads that Jerry Duggan had laid out. We're also getting a couple of new threads that Steve Orlando is going to be able to play with going down the line. We know that a lot of members of the team, as well as mainstay characters of the book, are either going to be walking away or are going to be sunset for a little bit, or may just be taking more of a behind-the-scenes role. But we do know for a fact that Kate Pryde is going to remain on as leader of the Marauders, and the mission statement really isn't changing. They're still going to be going places that they're not wanted and handling problems that don't want to be handled, and probably more likely than not, helping mutants who aren't on Krakoa who want to get to Krakoa. Well, you know, get to Krakoa. We know that Bishop is going to be staying on long term with the Marauders. We also know that former Hellion and current captain of Krakoa, Quanon, is also going to be joining the team. We know that in light of X Factor no longer being a thing, Wolverine's son Daken is going to be joining the team, as well as his new Boothang, former Alpha Flight member Aurora. We also know that the new character Somnus is also going to be joining the team and getting some much needed panel time, as well as personal favorite and the character I voted for last year in the X vote, Tempo. With that out of the way though, let's talk about some of the big changes that are coming. The biggest change is going to be that the Hellfire Trading Company is going to be undergoing new management. Now, Emma Frost wants one person and one person only to take over this gig. Emma has spread herself too thin. She has basically tried to do so many things. She's basically been spinning a lot of plates, and ever since House of X, she's been an integral part of the Krakoan machine. She has been this huge driving force. She's been running the Hellfire Trading Company. She's been the face to the governments of the world of Krakoa in a lot of respects. She's also been running a lot of things behind the scenes in terms of the black market side of the Hellfire Trading Company, something that was originally supposed to be Sebastian Shaw's gig, but that was taken away from him and given to her. We also know that she had this huge undertaking of the Hellfire Gala. We also know that she had to deal with a lot of other shenanigans going with that and other things even after the fact. She's basically been all over the place, and if you take Inferno into account, which I want to say with how this book plays everything out, I don't think Inferno has quite happened yet. And if you want any further proof of that, you can look at the seat that is next to Charles Xavier and Magneto towards the end of this issue. Destiny is not present, so Inferno takes place well after this. All that aside, she is ready to step aside. She is ready to move on to greener pastures and give herself a lighter load, and to do that, she is going to bring in a character that Jerry Duggan had teased quite some time ago, and that is the character of Lord's Chantelle. Now, I'm not going to rehash everything that we have talked about in the past about Lord Chantelle. I will, however, say that we have done videos talking about Lord Chantelle, a character who was once a member of the Hellfire Club and was originally the lover of Sebastian Shaw. However, events that we won't go into here had led to the belief that Lord Chantelle was dead due to events that transpired in classic X-Men number 7 back in roughly around maybe 1985, 1986. And we recently learned in Marauders number 22 that that was not the case. If you want to know more about the reasoning behind that, I did a whole video about it. I'll try to remember to link it somewhere in the cards if I can remember to, or just go check out my video for Marauders number 22. But all that aside, she wants to bring in Lord Chantelle, and we have seen her around lately, and it would make sense for Lord Chantelle to take Emma Frost's place. And if you don't understand exactly why that would be such a big deal, it's because back in the OG days of the Hellfire Club, Lord Chantelle was kind of, I guess for lack of a better way to put it, the bleeding heart of the group. She wasn't as cold and calculating as Emma or Sebastian Shaw. She seemed more warm-hearted and warm-spirited than anyone else that was in the group. You know, for as what at the time was a group of supervillains. But that being said, Lord Chantelle, in the time that she had faked her death, she has become a force of nature in the world of business. She has become a master financier and literally runs her own bank. Who better to come in and handle the business side of things for Emma Frost and the Hellfire Trading Company than Lord Chantelle? One could make a case for Harry Leland, but Leland right now is working more in the political arena, so he's too busy to do it, and we all know what Sebastian Shaw has been up to lately. Now, at the end of this all, Lords, she has other plans. While Emma is wanting Lords to take her position, Lords doesn't want to do that. She wants to take Shaw's position. Now, the reasoning behind this is because if one can imagine someone having to literally fake their own death just to get away from somebody, I should pretty much tell you everything you need to know about the relationship. Shaw used to mercilessly beat Lords back in the day, and she has never forgiven him for that, and she's still yet to have forgiven him for it now. And when Emma presents the idea that Lord Chantelle is going to be taking over her position, we actually learn here Lords doesn't want it. She wants Shaw's position. And while initially Shaw thinks that this is a reunion of sorts, it's not. And Shaw actually had a slipping of words where he says that he would give anything before Chantelle cuts him off. It basically sets up Chantelle's gambit to take his position, and Shaw gives it up willingly, almost too willingly. He hardly even hesitates. I mean, he has a bit of a hesitation between his words, but he does actually accept the terms almost too quickly, musing about how it'll give him more opportunity to focus on his work with the Quiet Council. And he only asks that Chantelle keep Shinobi Shaw, his son, or rather Leland's son, who Shaw just happened to raise. That's another development that recently came out in the previous issue of Marauders number 26. You can check out my video for that if you're so inclined to want to know how that became a thing. But yes, Chantelle is going to keep Shinobi Shaw on deck since he has been installed into the company since being resurrected back in Marauders number 3. Now, the real question is, what does Emma do now? Because her position is still up. She still has to find somebody who can take it. And while her brother, Christian Frost's name is not necessarily thrown into the hat, it does seem like he's even less likely of a candidate to take her place as the White King of the Hellfire Trading Company, because he's actually taking his own beau, Iceman, away for a little vacation. This is largely due to the fact that because of recent events regarding Planet-Size X-Men, also by Jerry Duggan, Iceman, of course, has known he's been an Omega level mutant for quite some time, but he's never really fully tested the full breadth of his powers. And now that he is recently, as of Jerry Duggan's Planet-Size X-Men, help make Mars into a livable planet for mutants, he's kind of been feeling himself lately. I mean, he literally just hauled off on Fin Fang Foom in the previous issue of Marauders number 26. He is also, as we now know, he has recently traveled to Niflheim and has been soloing all of the Frost Giants there, to the point that he actually has them apologizing for invading the Earth during 2019's Marvel event, War of the Realms. Now, to give you an idea of just how powerful Iceman is becoming, he has basically just been putting himself to the test. He is literally taking it to Frost Giants using his own mutant power. You know you gotta be one bad mamma jamma if you can use frost powers to mercilessly beat Frost Giants. But something tells me this is setting up a future threat for Iceman that, maybe we won't see play out in Marauders under Steve Orlando, which I think is a missed opportunity, just me personally. However, something tells me he'll be coming back to the team, but I also think we'll wind up seeing some misadventures of Iceman and Christian Frost down the road. But more importantly, I think Iceman's, attitude, this newfound attitude he has now, embracing his Omega mutant nature, I think something bad is going to be down the road, because he's going to wind up pushing the wrong direction. He's going to wind up getting pushed back, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But who knows? It may never happen, at least not anytime soon. But it is cute to think about the fact that when Christian Frost comes back, that he'll have his own mutant name, that he will no longer go by the name of Christian Frost, at least when he is among mutants. That said, this is what leads Emma to decide to reach out to another individual to replace her on the Hellfire Trading Company, and not just one person, but multiple people. She is going to reach out to what are effectively her own daughters, the Stepford Cuckoos. Now, initially, they did want to take over the Hellfire Trading Company, but Emma didn't want them to do so. That said, the Stepford Cuckoos will take her place, and what's going to be interesting about this is that no single one of them will be the actual true White Queen. They will, all 5 of them, share the duty of being the White Queen. But at the same time, whoever is wearing the white at that time, it doesn't matter whether it's Celeste or Irma or Esme, Phoebe or Sophie, whoever is wearing the white at the time is going to be the one who will make the last call as far as major decisions in the Hellfire Trading Company goes. But at the end of it all, what exactly does this set up for Sebastian Shaw? Because once again, he just seemed to have gone along with this too willingly. And while he does send out a public message basically saying that he is abdicating his throne of Black King, that he is walking away from his duties as Black King and handing over the reins to Chantelle Lords, we also know that he has had some private messages with both Lords and Shinobi. To Shinobi basically telling him that you may be Harry's true son, however, you were raised by me, and the lessons that I've taught you are lessons that you need to heed, and that he shouldn't trust either Lord Chantelle or the Stepford Cuckoos or Emma Frost for that matter, and that he should do everything in his power to take over the Hellfire Trading Company. Maybe in not as so many words, but that's basically what he's telling him to do. He's telling him that this is his opportunity, manipulating him into trying to do everything possible to take over the Hellfire Trading Company. Meanwhile, he's also setting everything in opposition of Shinobi, telling Lord Chantelle in a private message that he's grateful that she decided to keep Shinobi on as the Black Bishop, but to not trust him because he's a snake, because Sebastian Shaw himself was a snake. He is untrustworthy, so therefore he is imparting on Lords, already kind of playing on her biases towards Sebastian himself and basically trying to trick her into not trusting Shinobi either, when in fact Shinobi's probably the most trustworthy person between the two of them. Yes, of course, when Shinobi Shaw was originally introduced to us back in X Factor number 67 back in 1991, yes, he was a snake. Yes, he's been a terrible person ever since then, and he has rarely, if ever, had anything resembling a human heart in the past. But since he's been resurrected as of Jerry Duggan's Marauders number 3, he has kind of been an okay guy. We've been learning that he's not exactly the terrible person that we kind of have become used to seeing him as, even towards the end of Matthew Rosenberg's run of Uncanny X-Men right before House of X began. Shinobi Shaw is about to be manipulated by Sebastian Shaw in so many different ways. It's almost kind of like the last ditch effort to basically throw everything into disarray. One could make a case that he's basically playing both sides against the middle so that the whole thing blows up, that if he can't have the Hellfire Trading Company, nobody should be able to have it, and everybody's just going to try and screw each other over to the point that it basically just makes them have to ask for him to come back, or he can swoop in and just take over as he's always wanted to. Or I think there might be something else at play here. I think Sebastian Shaw is manipulating Shinobi to basically take over, and I don't think that he's actually trying to turn Lords against Shinobi because he wants Shinobi to fail. I think he wants to instill distrust in Lords against Shinobi so that it will justify why Shinobi has to do what he's probably going to have to do, and that is to be devious and do terrible things to get what he wants. And Shinobi will feel justified because he will see that Lords is treating him unfairly, or that the Stepford Cuckoos are treating him unfairly, so he will feel justified in any action that he takes against them. Shaw is a master manipulator, and it shows here, and that's exactly what his plan is. The real issue here is going to be whether or not anybody takes the bait. And I'm going to go on a limb and say Lords is going to take the bait. She already has a predisposition towards Shaw, as I mentioned earlier. Something tells me she'll have a predisposition towards his son as well, and that is going to open up the door for even more good storytelling between the two characters. Will Lords just completely dismiss Shinobi Shaw out of hand? Will she learn that he's actually not the bad person that she initially wants to believe he is because of who his father is? Or will she somehow just see through all of it, and maybe, just maybe, they might find some kind of a working relationship? Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about another thing I want to jump on real quick, and that is the issue of Dolores Ramirez. I have often talked about the fact that Dolores Ramirez is probably one of the most schizophrenic characters that you could possibly see in this current Krakoan era, because since she has been incepted, both Jerry Duggan and Benjamin Percy have been writing this character, and where in some cases, Jerry Duggan seems to write this character with a bit more humanity, whereas Benjamin Percy just kind of writes her as, I won't say so much as a mustache-twirling villain, but she doesn't seem that much different than the characters from Xeno or Hominis Verendi. She just seems to really not like mutants. But we learn here in this issue, a data page has done what so many different issues have yet to do, and it's given her an actual purpose. Now, yes, I know what you're thinking. She runs X-Desk. They're an anti-mutant organization that just basically keeps tabs on everything that mutants are doing. But that's not her true purpose, and I think Jerry Duggan, on his way out the door, actually finally gave Dolores something to do, something to give her meaning. And we know that she cares about humans. We know that she cares about humanity. And Jerry Duggan, I feel, has done a better job of depicting her as a more nuanced character, because she initially seemed to be very dismissive of mutants, but then we later learned that she actually doesn't hate mutants and that she actually owes a lot towards mutants. But at the end of the day, she has to protect humanity, and that is her job. But in this issue, we learn that while she does think that an island of mutants was dangerous and that a planet of mutants is dangerous, she also reveals that she thinks what Fei Long just recently did in X-Men number 6 is also incredibly dangerous. That she doesn't even want to be bothered trying to go and see, what it is that he's done. Now, granted, some of this is probably due to the fact that she was recently shot and gravely injured in Benjamin Percy's Wolverine number 18, but also just the point that she feels that a man going to create a base on the moon of a planet that has recently become the home of mutants, and you yourself are an anti-mutant person, and you are doing this with anti-mutant sentiment, basically touting human supremacy, she thinks that that is incredibly dangerous. She even says herself, and I'll use her words exactly, she says the panic in the air is palpable in some circles, and I need to stress that a first strike of any meaningful kind is not in the offing from Krakoa, basically saying that she knows Krakoa will never strike first. Whatever it is that humanity thinks that Krakoa is going to do, they're not going to do. She says herself that there are very powerful people on this planet acting like the taking of Mars was a provocation and not a de-escalation. She actually sees what Krakoa did for what it truly was. Mutants weren't trying to rule over humanity. They weren't trying to take anything away from humanity. They were basically trying to give themselves a home so that way hostilities between humans and mutants could maybe at some point see an end. But humanity doesn't see it that way. And this is something I talked about in the past when we originally talked about House of X. What was the thing that I compared Krakoa to? I compared it to Black Wall Street. A lot of people may or may not remember the history surrounding that, but it was a town that was owned and operated by Black people, and it was a very strongly successful town, and it was growing into something incredibly special. But white people, seeing that, they thought to themselves, oh, well, we can't have this. They're over here thriving, and they thought that it was an affront to them. But in fact, what that was a de-escalation. And what Dolores Ramirez is talking about is that, and I'm not saying this maybe was Jerry Duggan's actual intention here, but what I'm saying is that Dolores Ramirez, whether she realizes it or not, is comparing what Fei Long is prepping to do to Planet Araco in a roundabout way to what white people did to Black Wall Street, how they bombed it, air raided it. And she basically sees that as what's probably going to wind up happening with Planet Araco. She even goes as far as to say that we have no official desk tracking the threat that human supremacists may present. So for the time being, I'd like to put my tired eyes on anything of interest in that department. And I think that's a big deal because we have people watching mutants, but who's watching the people who are trying to hurt, harm, and kill mutants and are starting all of these? We saw this huge outcropping of mutant hate groups between Xeno, Hominis Verendi, so on and so forth. Where are the people who are watching these groups? And I love the fact that Dolores Ramirez is actually maybe possibly gonna see something like that started. Also, of course, I do find it interesting. He said, whoever sent the orchid with no card attached. It makes me wonder. There's two things I kind of thought about this was, she says whoever sent it, thank you. She's not sure who to thank for that. Part of me wonders if it was either Wolverine or ex-CIA agent, I believe it was Jeff Bannister, who has been a major part of the Wolverine comics as of late, because they were the people who were on deck when she was shot. Or I could even wonder because of the shenanigans going on with Beast, whether or not this was Beast planning another one of his Krakoan bugs, who knows? But I think she would be keenly aware that that would be something that is a thing, since she did in fact know about the Krakoan bugs and was even using them against Krakoa. All that aside, we also know that there's something going on with Wilhelmina Kensington, that apparently since she has left Hominis Verendi and has decided to turn over a new leaf, Hominis Verendi has basically taken away all her money. They've even sent an assassin after her, a Reaver, in fact, to take her out. And of course, the Stepford Cuckoos, they have made sure that she has protection, with Callisto being the one to step in and make sure that, she stays safe. And she even talks about how she'll never be able to escape Hominis Verendi, that she won't be able to do this unless she can completely disappear, that she would have to change everything about herself. And this kind of takes us back to something that was kickstarted in Jerry Duggan's Marauders number 18 with the character Mask. Over at the Maura McTaggart Memorial Hospital, which apparently is, as they say in this issue, is soon to be renamed, which once again makes me wonder where this takes place in all this, because technically the way everything looks, it seems like this takes place before Inferno, but who knows? Anyways, Mask is going to use his powers to give Wilhelmina Kensington a new face. Now, what she looks like now is a whole other story. We know she's still a blonde, and she very likely still has the same eyes, because what it seems like Mask is doing is mostly just changing and remolding her actual face itself. And whatever it is that he did to her, we don't get to see the sum result of it. However, what we do know is that she is still out there somewhere, and whether or not she's going to take this new lease that she has on life, because, once again, she now has remorse. She now actually feels guilt over the things that she's done now, because the Stepford Cuckoos had unlocked it within her, and we learned that she had had a really rough life, and it kind of informed why she was the way that she was. So what is it she's going to do now with this new lease on life? It's hard to say, but something tells me we've yet to see the last of her, and I would actually love to see if maybe she decided to use this new lease to maybe, I don't know, do something similar to what the Verendi were already doing, but maybe do something that actually helps mutants, considering what mutants have done for her as of late. Last, and most certainly not least, is what's going to be up with Kate Pride going forward, because we learned at the beginning of this issue that the whole deal with Kate not being able to use Krakoan gates, it's still a thing, and it is yet to be fixed. It is yet to be addressed, and it's addressed here. The fact that they still don't know. Kate is pretty much the only mutant that doesn't have the ability to use a Krakoan gate, and it's something that even Forge has been baffled by. He even points out that Krakoa itself doesn't understand why it's happening, even to the point that Forge even brings up what makes this all so strange is not what Kate thinks, the fact that she can walk through anything except a Krakoan gate, but the fact that she's always been able to disrupt technology when she's used her powers on it. You gotta remember in the past that whenever she would put her hand through like a piece of technology, whether it be a computer or any kind of a device, a television or a radio or anything for that matter, she would always wind up short-circuiting it, and in a lot of cases completely destroying it whenever she phased through it. But Krakoan tech actually does the opposite to her, And we don't get an answer to this by the end of this issue, but what we do know is Kate seems to have a solution to her problem. She ends up visiting an old friend, Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic himself. And what I found very interesting in this is that what she asked of him is very interesting, because she's pretty open about the fact that she needs his help, and he's actually open with her about the fact that he needs hers as well. And it seems like a thread from Chip Zdarsky's X-Men Fantastic Four miniseries is about to be addressed, because in that issue, Charles Xavier had wiped Reed Richards' memory of his knowledge of how he created the X-gene dampening device that he had made for Franklin Richards. This was a device that seemed to have been directly responsible for why Franklin was losing his mutant powers, but we later learned that that was actually not really the case. But part of me is wondering if Jerry Duggan has found some kind of way to walk that back, because at this point Franklin is deemed no longer a mutant as of Dan Slott's Fantastic Four number 25, and even more so that he is no longer a mutant in the following issues of that. I believe Fantastic Four number 26, where it's revealed that Charles Xavier has learned that Franklin never was a mutant in the first place, that he used his reality warping abilities to make himself appear to be a mutant, and that the losing of his powers basically opened Xavier's eyes to that. But now I begin to wonder why Reed would need information about that device. I mean, he doesn't know what it is that Charles took away from him. He just knows that Charles wiped something from his mind. And right now, Kate is willing to help him with that, bringing some Krakoan drugs. Now, we know that the Krakoan drugs are able to help cure most, if not all, human ailments. Now, of course, she has brought two different flowers, and I'm wondering which ones she happened to have brought, because of the three flowers that create the Krakoan drugs that mutants have made for humans, we have drug L, which basically extends human life for 5 years. There's also drug I, which is, for all intents and purposes, a universal antibiotic. It's basically good for just about anything. And then we also know that drug M is one that helps cure diseases of the mind in humans. Something tells me that she has brought drug M to Reed to help him remember whatever it is that Xavier did to him. Now, whether or not this works is a whole other story, and what would Reed benefit from this if he got it back? Because for all intents and purposes, Reed no longer knows what it was. I mean, yeah, technically he knows that something was taken away. Xavier basically did the mind wipe in such a way that Reed would always know that there's a blind spot, that there's something missing, but he doesn't know what it is. Now, I do wonder, what is Reed gonna do when he finally learns what that is? Is he going to go through with the creation of that device, the very same device that can cloak the mutant X gene and for all intents and purposes deactivate it? Is he going to go through with the creation of that device, or is he going to create something that might help Franklin become a mutant once again? That is the question. Once again, who knows? It's hard to say by this point, but the other thing we have to wonder too is what are going to be the repercussions of this action on the part of Kate Pryde? Because I mean, yeah, she could sit and wait around for Forge to figure out her whole not being able to use Krakoan Gates issue, but going to Reed Richards and trying to help him remember something that Xavier and Magneto wanted to make sure that he forgot. That one is a tough one. It's a tough call, and something tells me, especially with everything that's going on lately, I don't think this is going to go the way I think a lot of people are going to expect it to. A lot of people are going to expect something negative to happen to Kate Pryde as a result of this, like, for one, her being exiled or kicked off the Quiet Council. I think at most, she might lose her place on the Quiet Council, but I doubt that, considering that they're trying to have as few changes as possible going into Kieran Gillen's Immortal X-Men. So I don't think that's actually going to happen either, especially with everything that just happened in Inferno. I don't think Charles or Magneto are in any position to try and be mad at somebody for keeping a secret. I also think that the Quiet Council will probably look at the idea of Reed Richards relearning how to create such a device. They will probably find it incredibly problematic. But as I said earlier, I think that if, given the benefit of hindsight and having a second chance, something tells me Reed won't repeat the same mistake twice. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Marauders number 27 and Jerry Duggan's entire run as a whole. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.